Have you ever been asked to do something in a way that just didn't sit right with you? What happens in your body when you feel that tension between your instincts and someone else's expectations? Do you tend to override your own inner voice or question theirs?
Thanks for joining us today at the Healing Medicine Podcast. Who are you listening to? I am Dr. Jessie Mahoney, and my co-host is Dr. Ni-Cheng. We are two board-certified physicians who bring decades of experience to the conversation about wellness. If you crave more ease and aspire to rediscover your love for medicine and life, one mindful step at a time, you are in the right place. We hope you'll love today's episode, and if so, please share it. A reminder that nothing in our podcast is medical advice. Welcome to our episode on navigating the tension between your way and theirs. Our intention today is to explore the moment that so many of us have experienced when someone asks us to do something in a way that's different than we think it should be done, or different than what feels right to us inside. And in medicine and many other parts of our life, we are trained to follow rules and defer to authorities and prioritize harmony and making other people happy, to accommodate. And this episode is to sit with the tension between accommodating and what feels right to you, getting curious about what's actually happening beneath that surface reaction, and to explore that tension between whether to comply or resist. We'll lean into exploring this balance between trusting our inner voices a little bit more and growing the capacity to stay open and experiment with other ways of doing things. And today's podcast came because I've had a recent experience where I was asked to do something, and I have an idea about the right way to do it, which all of us do when someone asks you something, and a deep belief in the project and bringing lots of expertise. And those who came to me with the request also have their ideas. And their ideas are not necessarily in alignment with what I believe to be the right, best way. There also might be realistic restrictions on doing things in the right, best way. And so I have been sitting with this dilemma, and I've gotten coached on it. And I'm still in this middle moment between the idea of, where am I being stubborn? Where are my expectations maybe unreasonable? Where is it, my way is the right way? Versus where is it important to lean into your alignment and inner knowing? And I think this comes up a lot as people are thinking about transitions or embarking on something. And it's a reminder that there's no right or wrong way, and there are lots of paths and options. And how do we stay open in these moments?
So when those moments happen, there is a moment of tension that happens, and you'll miss it if you don't pay attention. So what's actually really happening in that moment of tension? It can be quite subtle, and when it's subtle, it oftentimes gets missed unless you are trained in mindfulness or take it as in a moment of mindfulness. It can also be not so subtle. There can be definite physiologic shifts, some internal physical discomfort that you're actually feeling in your body, like chest tightness or kind of queasiness in your stomach, butterflies in your stomach, a sense of resistance or pressure or heaviness, a general sense of unease. And sometimes it needs to be a pretty split-second decision. So sometimes there is a compliance that when you look upon the situation in retrospect, you maybe regret automatically just deferring to the complying. Or there could be an immediate reaction of resistance and pushing back and saying no, or you could do nothing at all. You could stay silent. And that in and of itself is a decision. It's a choice in these types of situations. So I'll give you some more concrete examples. Like when I was medical director, I was asked to approach something in a way that didn't feel quite aligned. So it was about a university-wide mandate that approached patient populations differently. And potentially, in my own humble opinion, I was concerned that this new approach was going to limit access. And they wanted me to approve this new approach. So that's one example. And there was definitely some internal misalignment that was happening there. Other times, more recently, patients asked me to write all sorts of different letters.
We've
sometimes they've already written a draft letter for me, already told me what I should be writing. Yeah. It could be anywhere from needing to move out of a mold-filled apartment to limiting the duties at work to enabling them to work from home to other documentation about disability. And honestly, my initial reaction is always bristly. When I see those requests, there is an automatic reaction of bristleness, of bristle and roughness. And basically, I'm being told what to do in these situations. That being said, though, when I don't let that automatic reactivity take over, I am actually happy to provide truthful documentation of my own words supported by the medical record, but on my own terms. So not free work. So oftentimes these are situations of urgency. And so remembering that oftentimes their urgency is not your urgency. And we have a very old podcast about that. So I try to make it so the situation is such that I can provide the documentation that I can stand for and provide to help them, but on my terms. In a clinic visit on protected time is my ideal. So the moment isn't just about the ask. It's not just about the task. Oftentimes these moments of tension involve a lot more. It's much larger than that circumstance. It's about your boundaries, even your identity, your safety, your sense of belonging, and checking in with your people-pleasing tendencies, and also some self-trust and integrity too.
Wow. I just wrote down everything you said, and I'm going to repeat it for people listening, because this is really what I want to lean into as I figure out how I want to move forward. It's about your identity, your sense of safety, your boundaries, your people pleasing, and your sense of belonging. I would say self-trust and trust in the process, and sort of trust in the world. So why do these moments feel so charged? Why do we show up bristly, honestly? And it's really conditioning. So in medicine, we're conditioned to notice hierarchy and follow in line and not step out of line. We tend to be perfectionists and think there's a right way and a wrong way and the best way. And that also we only like to do things in the best way. We don't want to do something that isn't the best that it could be. And as I'm saying that, I'm like, yeah, that's how I think, and that's how I want to show up. And there's a value to that. And there's a value sometimes in getting a conversation going or beginning something or dipping a toe in. And so where might something be that? I think we also have a tremendous fear of being wrong or being judged, and we are often judged, and of missing out, that scarcity mindset, or there might not be another chance. Things like that can come up. And then we're also, many of us, praised for being easy, good, agreeable, and we are amazing people pleasers. And so very often we experience these moments as women and people in medicine, and depending on your upbringing, if you're neither of those, you still may experience them. And our nervous system response is to conflict. And I am conflict avoidant. So conflict to me feels unsafe. And I think many of you may have a similar response to conflict, especially if you're a people pleaser and you would like to be easy, good, or agreeable. So there's a hidden cost to all this, though. And when we stay out of conflict, when we just simply show up as the easy, good, agreeable, hierarchical, fearful version of us who's worried about missing out, we actually do miss out sometimes. And we can also disconnect from ourselves and our values. Medicine often presents this as being told to practice in a way that doesn't align with your values because it aligns with potentially organizational values. You sort of gave an example of that. Many of us have family expectations about the way things should be done. We have workplace dynamics where maybe questioning feels risky. Will there be a punitive? Will there be a consequence? And is it still valuable to create something that's different than or less than the best solution? Is there still value, or is there helpfulness that could come from something that's in between?
So how can we approach these inevitable situations of tension? Well, mindfulness is a way towards that discernment that is needed to separate out where that pain point is. Is it our ego becoming offended? Is it an inherent fear? Because conflict is present and we've learned to associate conflict with potentially danger. Or is there an inner knowing that feels misaligned? And also to call out that while we are highly educated, not every disagreement and not every tension point means that what our inner knowledge is absolutely 100% right.
And a reminder, there's a lot of rights.
Yeah.
There's a lot of right ways to do things. There's not just one.
These moments of tension can be opportunities to practice mindfulness, getting curious about the origins of the tension. Like, is that tension an automatic reactive response from all the number of things that we just mentioned? Or is it providing some clarity towards, yeah, I really, really don't want to do it this way because it just doesn't sit right with me. So there's a distinction between an automatic reaction towards a binary chosen response versus a clarity as to what you truly value as well. And so bringing up values, like what is at stake? What's being imposed upon? What values are you honoring? Are you upholding that feel threatened in these points of tension?
And with time and reflection, your resistance can soften. And that's what's happened to mine. And I'm thinking about even those forms. Sometimes when we're asked to fill it out, if we just let it sit, we can reflect on it and start to think about maybe alternatives, a third choice, rather than I'll do their draft or not do anything. Like, what could the medium draft be? Or so I think this idea of the pause and stepping out of reactivity so you can choose a response, that allows you to show up softer and with more curiosity. And I would add in creativity. When you get curious and you soften and you create space, that's where rooms for creative solutions can arise.
And when these moments of tension arise, there is another perspective that is being presented to you. And so that can actually be helpful in many circumstances. It can help you become more expansive in your perspectives. But you have to be mindful and you have to get curious and not hyper judgmental as your initial reaction.
And a reminder that we're taught in medicine to be hyperjudgmental. So, of course, that's our inner reaction. This is very helpful for me. All of this is turning in my head as I'm so happy that I brought this up as a in the moment podcast to delve into. Just there's so many different ways to approach these situations when you pause and when you approach it. Actually, I'm going to offer a little lightness and a little laughter. You'll hear both of us laughing here as like real truths and moments in life where we really were bristly or reactive, or we really did think we were right. And maybe we were actually showing up a little defensive. So our next invitation is to honor yourself while staying in whether it's a conflict or maybe it's just a different perspectives. And is it beyond this binary notion of compliance versus, doing it on your own, or the conflict, this is my way, this is your way? How can we potentially pause or bring up a different perspective in those languages of mindfulness? I'm noticing that I see this differently. How can we show up curious, remembering that those tenets of mindfulness are noticing and awareness and curiosity? They would work amazing here. The patience and the pause is another one. And maybe we can co-create something rather than be in opposition or not create anything at all. And I love the invitation here of not abandoning yourself, but leaning into connection, creativity, curiosity, and co-creation. They're all C's.
So there are right ways, plural. There can be a perception of one right way that you may have experienced yourself, have done yourself, but there are multiple ways often to any circumstance that will get desired outcomes. So we can use mindfulness to help acknowledge that, to expand our own perspectives of what's possible to still get to desired outcomes, to hold multiple truths, not just your own, but other people's perspectives. And that these moments of tension, how uncomfortable they are, but they are definitely opportunities where we can be very intentional about what we choose. We can choose alignment over someone else's approval of us.
We can choose learning and growth also. What can I learn from their perspective? Where there might be wisdom. I'm called to point out also an idea we spoke about a few episodes ago about a preference list. So rather than it being right or wrong, you can have your preferred way of doing it and they can have their preferred way of doing it. And maybe neither is right or wrong. They're just different options.
So as we always like to do, we want to close with some reflection questions. When was the last time something didn't feel right, but you went along with it anyway?
What did that cost you? Emotionally, energetically, or relationally?
How do you recognize your inner yes versus your inner no?
Where might you experiment with pausing before automatically agreeing or automatically refusing?
What would it look like to trust yourself a bit more in these moments?
And what would it look like to show up curious and flexible and ask yourself what you might learn from it rather than trying to solve it?
These moments when someone asks you to do something differently aren't problems to solve. They're actually invitations and opportunities. You can choose to slow down, get curious, practice a mindful moment, and choose with intention rather than automatic reactivity and habit.
And in the spirit of invitations, we want to invite you to join us at Connect in Nature. It is our co-created, co-led retreat where we will help you grow things like curiosity and creativity, and building in that pause and the mindful moment so you can respond rather than react. It is open to men and women, and it's a great opportunity to bring a partner, a friend, a beloved, a colleague to join you. It happens at the most beautiful place, Green Gulch, and we will spend time in Muir Woods and Muir Beach. And we are super excited. We have a couple more spots, and we'd love to have you join us. I also invite you, if this work resonates and this way of thinking resonates, to reach out for coaching or to join me for one of my women physician retreats. And both Ni-Cheng and I love giving talks, and much of the things that we speak about in this podcast make for amazing talks for grand rounds and other wellness events. And we would both love to be available for you if that sounds of interest. We also invite you to stay on after the mindful moment, after the sound of the singing bell, for the mindful moment. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. If our message resonates, we'd love to connect further. Join us for coaching, mindfulness experiences, workshops, and retreats. Invite us to speak at your institution or conference. When you work with us, you don't just consume information, you create real change. Find Ni-Cheng Liang at Awakened Breath and Jessie Mahoney at Pause and Presence. Welcome to this mindful moment offering. The invitation here is for you to close your eyes or lower your gaze a few inches in front of you. When there's an uncomfortable moment, inviting you to let it rain. So this acronym RAIN can be a quick mind exercise for you to run yourself through in these moments of difficulty. So R stands for recognize the discomfort. A is to allow and accept that something uncomfortable is happening. And there's no benefit to really resisting it in the moment because it's already here. So allow and accept that this moment of discomfort is here. And then I is an invitation for you to investigate. So investigate what's actually happening externally that's causing this discomfort. What's happening internally? Naming thoughts, body sensations, emotions that you're having. And then N is a double N. N is for not personal. So oftentimes conflict, disagreements, discomfort can be over personalized, and it can be taken very personally by ourselves. It can be made to mean more than it actually is. So reminding yourself that this uncomfortable situation is probably not an attack on your entire humanity or your spiritual being. And that this is also an opportunity, another N coming up here for nurturing. So, N for nurture, what can I do for myself to show myself some kindness in this moment? So hopefully this RAIN acronym will be helpful for you the next time you encounter some conflict, a sensation of misalignment from your own deeply held values, disagreements, discomfort. Taking a moment to notice how you feel now after going through that mind exercise. And as you're ready, blinking open your eyes, letting the light back in. Thanks so much for practicing with me today.